Greetings, math fans. All right, so this is chapter 8, day 1, and our first day of this chapter is we're going to solve equations by factoring. Okay, so again, this is chapter 8, day 1. All right, so again, the topic is solve by factoring. Now, this is kind of a review, math fans. I got a couple more problems at the end, which are a little more challenging, but a lot of the stuff is review. So, really quickly, if I gave you a problem like this, and let's say it was already factored. So, let's say I had x plus 3 times x minus 4 equals 0. Okay, so the first thing you got to recognize here is that it equals 0. That's actually really important. I'm going to continue mentioning this like throughout the whole lesson, because in order to solve an equation, it has to be equal to 0 if it's factored. Okay, so if you guys remember, you're going to set each one of these equal to 0, because think about it. If this first one's equal to 0, then if I multiply it by x minus 4, it doesn't matter what the x minus 4 is, right? 0 times anything is 0. Same thing if I said this was equal to 0. If I multiply that by x plus 3, it doesn't matter what that x plus 3 is, as long as I'm multiplying it by 0, it's going to give me 0. So either one of those needs to be 0 to solve the equation. All right. So I'm literally going to say x plus 3 equals 0, and I'm going to say x minus 4 equals 0. And then I'm going to solve each one of these. So subtract 3 from both sides, so x equals negative 3, and add 4 to both sides, so x equals 4. Okay. So that's the answer to that problem. X equals negative 3 and x equals 4. Right? Pretty easy. So let me just do a little more complicated one. Not really that big of a deal, but just a little more complicated. Let's say I had 2x times x minus 6 and 3x plus 1 equals 0. So remember, how many solutions am I going to have for this problem? Now you guys should tell me I'm going to have 3, because it's this one, and this one. I'm going to set each of those equal to 0. So real quickly, let me just do it. Then I divide by 2, so x equals 0. This one, x minus 6 equals 0. Add 6 to both sides, so you get x equals 6. And this one is 3x plus 1 equals 0. Subtract 1 from both sides, 3x equals negative 1. And then divide by 3, so x equals negative 1/3. So there you go. We got 1, 2, 3 answers. Okay, pretty easy. So really, wherever you see an x, that one, and that one, you're going to have a solution for that. So if the problem was almost the same thing, but let's say it looked like this: 2 parentheses x minus 6 times 3x plus 1. You guys better tell me that I'm only going to have 2 answers, this one and this one. That one doesn't have a variable, so you're certainly not going to set 2 is equal to something, right? That doesn't even make sense. So that's not a solution. That's, in fact, that's out of there, and you're just going to have these 2 answers that we originally had. So this guy and this guy. Okay, so just kind of keep your eye out for that. The number of x's is really the number of solutions. Okay, so that's pretty easy. Let's do a problem where it's not factored for you. So again, we're kind of doing still some review here, but which is cool. Let's say I have x squared plus 5x minus 6 equals 0. Okay, so first of all, it's got to be equal to 0. So again, I mentioned that again. If it's not equal to 0, you got to make it equal to 0 by moving stuff over. And then if you remember, we're going to do a factor box. Okay, if you don't remember how to do factor boxes, you need to go back and you need to look at I don't know what chapter it is, but you have to go back. It's all labeled. Learn how to do factor boxes again, or if you're coming in from another class, you do factoring any way you want. Okay, as long as you know how to do it. So we're going to take that x squared, we're going to put it here, we're going to put the negative 6 here, and we're going to put the 5x here. And so remember, it's got to multiply to give you x squared, so it's x times x, and then the negative 6, one's got to be positive, one's going to be negative. So we're definitely going to do a 6 and a 1, and the 1 is going to be negative. Because if I multiply it straight across then, this way, right, I get 6x, and x times negative 1 is negative x. And so 6x minus 1x is 5x. So that's good. And so then my answer is going to be x plus 6 and x minus 1. Remember to do that cross. So it's x plus 6 and x minus 1 equals 0. Okay, so you had a factor, and now it's like what I did in the beginning. We're going to say x plus 6 equals 0. Subtract 6 from both sides, x equals negative 6. And then add x minus 1 equals 0, add 1 to both sides, x equals 1. Okay, there we go. X equals negative 6 and 1. Pretty easy. So let's do a little more difficult one. Let's get another factoring problem. Okay, let's do 2x squared plus x minus 6 equals 0. Okay, no big deal. Do a nice little factor box with 2x squared, negative 6, and x. So that's just going to be, we'll say 2x and x. And then 6 can be 2 and 3. So again, you got to think your combination, right? If it's 2 and 3, that's actually going to work out. One of them's got to be negative. So if I multiply across here, I get 4x, and I multiply across here, I get 3x. So in order to one of them to be negative, it's got to be this one right here, because then 4x minus 3x is positive 1x, right? So that's perfect. So remember to cross, so it's x plus 2 and 2x minus 3. So it's x plus 2 times 2x minus 3, and that equals 0. Okay, and then we just solve. So x plus 2 equals 0, subtract 2, x equals negative 2, and 2x minus 3 equals 0, so add 3, so 2x equals 3, divide by 2, x is 3 halves. Here we go. Those are my two answers, so we're done with the problem. Okay, it's not bad. All right, so let's get just a little bit different, not much different. Okay, just to show you what's going to happen here. So what if I gave you guys a problem like this? 3x squared plus 10x is equal to negative 3. So you guys remember, it's got to be equal to 0. Okay, you can't do this problem. You cannot factor it if it's not equal to 0. So what am I going to do? I got to move that negative 3 over. I'm going to add 3 to both sides. So I get 3x squared plus 10x plus 3 equals 0. Okay, now I do a factor box. As long as it's equal to 0. So 3x squared, 3, and 10x. So 3x squared is 3x and x, and 3's got to be 3 and 1, but the order is here, 3 and 1, right? Because then this is going to be 9x and 1x, so that gives you 10x. Okay, so we got x plus 3 and 3x plus 1. Sweet! So x plus 3 and 3x plus 1. That's it factored. Okay, so that equals 0, of course, so x plus 3 equals 0. And subtract 3 from both sides, x equals negative 3. And 3x plus 1 equals 0. Subtract 1 from both sides, so 3x equals negative 1. Divide by 3, x is negative 1/3. Okay, there we go. Two answers. Negative 1/3 and negative 3. Okay, so it's not bad. Okay, let's try a little bit more aggressive one. Not much more. Again, just kind of have to follow along and just make sure you're good to go here. So here we go. X plus 3 times x minus 1 equals 12. Now the thing you have to realize here, math fans, is that please, this is a really bad thing to do, is to go, oh cool, x plus 3 equals 12 and x minus 1 equals 12. Boo! That is completely wrong. Completely wrong. It's got the only way you can set it equal to something is if it's equal to 0. So if you do this, you get no credit for it. Okay? So the deal is you got to actually do you got to do one more step than we did before. So I've got to FOIL this out. And basically, you need to break it up. If it's equal to a number like this, you've got to break this up first. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to FOIL it. So x times x is x squared. Outer is minus x. Inner is plus 3x. And last is minus 3 equals 12. Okay, let's combine these two terms together. So it's x squared plus 2x minus 3 equals 12. So guys, it's got to be equal to 0, so I'm going to subtract 12. And we've done this already. Subtract 12 from both sides, so you wind up getting x squared plus 2x minus 15 equals 0. Now you factor this. So we're going to do a factor box. So you get x squared, you get negative 15, and you get 2x. So it's going to be x, and 15 is really 3 and 5. Could be 5 and or 15 and 1, but 3 and 5. And then, so this is going to give us a 3x and a 5x, and one of them has to be negative to give you 2x, and so it's, of course, this one, because 5x minus 3x is 2x, so this one's negative here, too. So my answer to this is going to be x minus 3, x plus 5. So x minus 3 and x plus 5 equals 0. Very important, equals 0. Okay, and now x minus 3 equals 0, x plus 5 equals 0, and then we solve. So we add 3 to both sides, x equals 3, and subtract 5 from both sides, x equals negative 5. Okay? Right, it's not bad. So again, I had to FOIL that out and then set it equal to 0 and solve. So that's not bad. I got a couple more to do here. So let's look at this guy right here. 2x parentheses 4x minus 5 equals 3. Okay, what is a really, really bad thing to do? Set them each equal to 3. That doesn't make sense. To set them equal to 3. It only works when it's equal to 0. Okay, so the thing you need to do, just like I FOILed before, this one I just need to distribute. So 2x times 4x is 8x squared, and 2x times negative 5 is negative 10x equals 3. Okay, what do? Subtract 3 from both sides. So you get 8x squared minus 10x minus 3 equals 0. And then you got to do factor box. This is a little more complicated. Got a few more terms here. 8x squared, negative 3, and negative 10x. Okay, so 8x I'm going to go with 4x and 2x. And 3, well, think about it. If I did 1 and 3, that's not going to be good. Again, you got to experiment. This is 3 and 1. Because this is going to be 12x and 2x. And one of them's got to be negative because you got to multiply negative 3. Well, of course, this one's going to be negative because you need a negative 10x. Okay? So we have 2x minus 3 and 4x plus 1. Okay, so let's write out 2x minus 3 times 4x plus 1, and that equals 0 now. Okay, because that's this factored. Okay, so 2x minus 3 equals 0, and 4x plus 1 equals 0. So add 3 to both sides, so 2x equals 3, divide by 2, x is 3 halves. And this one subtract 1 from both sides, so 4x equals negative 1. Divide by 4, x is negative 1/4. Okay, so 3 halves and negative 1/4. Okay, it's not bad, right? Pretty mellow. Okay, so the last one is actually off of your worksheet. I'm not sure if it's going to be on the worksheet every year, but right now it's on the worksheet. And it's definitely a tough problem. It's number 11 on the worksheet. And it's got a lot of stuff to it, but again, as long as you kind of follow along, you're good to go, as long as you follow the same rules. So here's the problem. It's 14 parentheses x minus 4 minus parentheses x plus 2 is equal to x plus 2 times x minus 4. That is brutal looking, but it's not that bad. So what we're going to do is I'm going to distribute that 14. So I get 14x. 14 times 4 is minus 56. Distribute the negative, so negative x minus 2. And this one I'm going to FOIL it. So x squared, outer minus 4x, inner plus 2x, and last minus 8. All right, so let me put all your like terms together. So I'm going to combine this one and this one and this one and this one. So I get 14x minus x is 13x. Negative 56 minus 2 is negative 58. Here I'm going to combine these two together. So x squared minus 2x minus 8. Okay, so now we're kind of good to go. Here's the deal. I totally recommend that you not move that x squared to the left because you always want this to be positive. Okay, it's important. You always want your x squared term to be positive because otherwise you're trying to factor with negative numbers and it's just not a pretty thing. Okay, so always try to make that positive. So you can do a couple things. You can switch sides. You can just swap them and say x squared minus 2x minus 8 equals 13x minus 58. That's nice. Or just move this over to this side. Okay, that's all you have to do. So let me get rid of this little line here. That's really easy. In order to move that over, I'm just going to subtract 13x from both sides. And I'm going to add 58 to both sides. Okay, so this all cancels out, and that's why I'll get 0 on one side. But I'm going to put this now on the left-hand side. So I get x squared. Negative 2x minus 13x is negative 15x. And negative 8 plus 58 is plus 50. And that equals 0. Okay? I hope you guys are good with this. I just manipulated it, moved it all over, and now I'm going to do a factor box. So x squared, 50, and negative 15x. So we're going to get x and x, and 50 can be 50 and 1, which won't give you 15. It could be 10 and 5, which looks pretty good. Or it could be 25 and 2, but that's not so good. So if I do 10 and 5, do you guys agree that in order to be 50, they have to either be both positive or both negative? And since this is negative, these both have to be negative. So it's negative 10x and negative 5x. So negative 10x minus 5x is negative 15x, so we're good. So when I cross here now, x minus 10 and x minus 5. So here it is. X minus 10, x minus 5 equals 0. Okay, cool. X minus 10 equals 0, x minus 5 equals 0. So add 10, x equals 10, and add 5 to both sides, so x equals 5. Okay, so those are our two answers. That's it. So again, this is not really that difficult. You got to do a lot of factoring, you know, and you have to move everything over. It's got to make sure you're equal to 0 before you factor. Okay, it's so important. I cannot stress it enough, guys. It's got to be equal to 0 and then factor. Okay, super, super important. Okay, so that's it, math fans. Hopefully you guys are good to go with day 1 of chapter 8. Have an outstanding day. Adios. Goodbye.